Oh, clickety click click.
Clickety click click. And there we go.
There we go. And
So, should give it a few seconds to kick up here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I went to the bank. I went to two banks this morning. My dump bank and my normal bank. And yeah, the thing that I forgot to do is I forgot to ask the dump bank if they have any large dollars, because I haven't asked that question in a while, and I should, because chances are like they might have some. They're probably Ikes, but also if they have large dollars in their organs, then I guess I was kind of running a scenario through my head that I'm gonna go to the dump bank and I'm gonna ask if they have any large dollars, and it's gonna be like a semi-key date Morgan or something like that for like that I'm buying for $1. I'm like, this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's a good time to be asking for them. Right before Christmas, people are cashing in coins for festivities,
and
then right after New Year's, the first 2 or 3 weeks after New Year's is also a good time because people are cashing in coins to pay for their festivities or to help pay for their festivities. So, other than that, throughout the year, it's pretty hit and miss. But December, end of November, December, and the first part of January is a good opportunity.
Well, even earlier in November, because people are trying to get that Black Friday money.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about Black Friday money.
But like from November through basically January, there's going to be a lot of turnover for change and for circulation stuff. So always ask your bank for large dollars. You can say large dollars instead of Ikes or Eisenhower's, because they may not know, but they'll understand that they're large dollars. And the banks have no way to ship that stuff back. So they have to basically keep them until either one of the teller buys them or one of the customers buys them. So,
yeah, I wonder how many tellers actually they're like, oh, that's kind of cool, and they buy them and they just take them home and then throw them in a drawer someplace. As that's kind of cool.
A few, but also like that's okay, because then at least it retains at some level.
Yeah. I couldn't work at a bank as a teller, being a coin collector and doing currency.
Fired.
So, what are you doing? I'm searching coins.
It's like you've been trying to help this customer for 3 hours now. Like, you need to stop and just help them.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't do that. I wonder if that's one of the interview questions when they interview people. Are you a coin collector?
Well, technically it's a hobby, so that it's not anything legal that they can't ask you, but
what do you do in your free time? I collect coins. Oh, wait a minute.
Sorry, that was my outside voice.
My outside voice. I really want this job because this place gets coins and it'd be a great place to work.
Because I know all things about coins.
Yeah.
All right, man. Okay, let's kick it off. So we've got 3 people in here right now. I saw 4 earlier, but we're just gonna keep going. So welcome to Monday Night Coin Talk. This is part 3 and our last part of intro to Exonumia. So for Exonumia, if you're just joining in on the series, check out our last 2 shows that talks about different aspects of Exonumia. But basically, Exonumia is a subsection of numismatics that focuses on coins, that focuses on items that are not essentially coins, like tokens, metals, or script. And these are all like non government created money or money matters, perhaps is another way to say it. So, in our previous episodes, we touched on a number of different examples of exonumia that you might come across while you are coin collecting. During this particular episode, we are going to talk about a few very different, very specific topics on this one. While the scale of exonumia is very large, there are some coins or tokens or metals that are part of exonumia that you would not normally run across unless you are specifically looking for them. So, hello to John Argent. Saw him in the chat. So, thank you for coming. So, the first section that we're going to talk about is fraternal coins. So, this is one of those things that you might see some of these come up in if you're buying lots of coins or tokens or metals or anything or something like that. You might find some of these mixed in there. But some of these are generally you are not going to get unless you are specifically seeking them out or if you were actually part of that fraternity. The fraternal coins are generally considered in as part of four major groups. That is the Masonic, the Elks, the Moose, and the Woodmen of the World. And half of these I didn't even know even existed until I was researching for the show. So I think it just unlocks so much more history for me as a coin collector to understand these things. So the first one is Masonic coins. There are several varieties of Masonic coins, and all tokens will fall into one of the following categories: a token celebrating a particular Mason, lodge, or event, an initiation token when a brother was initiated, passed, and raised, the Mark Mason token, which signifies a pivotal part of a Mason's initiation. And so many of the symbols Masons come across on a daily basis are reflected in these categories, are reflected on these coins. Looking at these coins, it will have some or all of the following symbols and imagery. So the first one is a square and compass. The square and compass, usually accompanied by the letter G, stands for making one's action good and understanding one's role in the spiritual universe. The letter G. The letter G surrounded by a compass and square is often interpreted to mean one of two things. For some, it refers to geometry and supports the Masonic lessons and symbolism associated with builders and architects, as well as the measurement and understanding of the order and perfection of the universe. Others see it as referring to God or the great architect of the universe, which is a term used by the Masons of different faiths to refer to deity as they pray together, each according to his own beliefs. The apron and gloves. These symbols stand for living with a pure heart and to keep one's hands clean. The all-seeing eye. This symbol is designed to remind Masons that God and others always see their actions and thoughts. The ashlars. You may see rough or smooth ashlars on Masonic coins, and they are to remind Masons of the contrast between a man's natural state and perfection. And levels. The level is a symbol found on Masonic coins that reminds them that everyone is equal before God. One other key characteristic, especially with Masonic pennies, is the often queried letters H, T, W, S, S, T, K, S, which is a mnemonic associated with the Mark Master degree in York Rite Masonry. It is sometimes called the Tyrian signet and represents a keystone with symbolic meaning that has been given various interpretations by different people at different times. So the next one is the Elks. The Elks was founded on February 16th as the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks and is recognized by the noble creature that is the symbol of the order. This symbol can be seen on the Elks Challenge coins. Another item seen as representing the BPOE is the 11 o'clock toast, where a group of Elks members are together in a lodge. Regular order of business would be suspended for a few moments while a leader recites a ritual concluded with the words, "To our absent members." This moment is shown as a clock with Roman numerals with the hands pointed at 11 o'clock. There are a number of challenge coins available to members and can be customized through licensed vendors to reflect the specific lodge. The Moose. The Loyal Order of the Moose was founded in the spring of 1888 in Louisville, Kentucky. The challenge coins that are given to members will have the Loyal Order of Moose and the family fraternity legends on one side of the coin with a prominent moose standing on a rock. The opposite side will have the city, state, and lodge number on the reverse. The fourth category is Woodmen of the World. So the Woodmen of the World, or WOW, was founded in 1890 in Omaha, Nebraska by Joseph Cullen Root. Root founded the Modern Woodmen of America in 1883 after hearing a sermon about pioneer woodsmen clearing away the forest to provide for their families. He wanted to start a society that would clear away the problems of financial security for its members. After getting ejected from the MWA, he founded the Woodmen of the World. The symbolism for Woodmen of the World typically includes a freshly cut stump, an axe, maul and wedge, and a peaceful dove. The tree stump symbolized the end of life, while the axe and maul symbolized the tools used in the lumber industry. Other symbols like the dove, which represented peace, a broken tree limb meant a life cut short, and a bundle of sticks tied together with a band representing the strength of unity.
That's pretty solid stuff right there.
That's deep.
Yeah, that's real deep.
But there was definitely a lot of different things. Like some of the things I knew from the Elks. I did not know hardly anything of Masonic. Like I'd seen the symbolism before, but had never heard of the Loyal Order of the Moose, or the Woodmen of the World. An interesting piece about the Woodmen of the World is that early, like in the 20s, if somebody was represented by the Woodmen of the World, their headstone would be a tree trunk, and it would have the axe and maul on it and everything. So I thought that was really kind of cool. So you can kind of see that the people that are part of these groups, these fraternal orders, how they were reflected as in the group, and how you could basically go around and you could see those people associated with those groups.
Yeah, the Woodmen of the World is a group I didn't know about. I mean, I've heard of the Moose, the Elks, and the Masonics, but I've never heard of Woodmen of the World. So,
Yeah, I'd never heard of it either.
yay! All right, I'm going to jump over to wooden nickels. With the origins dating back to the 1800s, wooden nickels were used by businesses to promote their products or services and encourage customers to use their establishment. In the early 20th century, banks or merchants still used them as a promotional item. 1929, when the Great Depression hit the U.S., it was deemed a financial crisis. People were holding any and all coins, causing a shortage of the coins in the U.S. After failure of the Citizen Bank in Tenino, Washington in 1931, the Chamber of Commerce teamed up with the local newspaper to create paper script to be printed that was redeemable in the local economy. The paper script was soon replaced with wooden money.
Tenino.
God, I was close.
Yep. That's a hard one.
It's a hard one. Printed by Don Majors, publishers of the Tenino Independent newspaper, on thin strips of Sitka spruce, Port Orford cedar, and red cedar. These wooden nickels were widely accepted as currency by local merchants and helped keep the local economy afloat during these times. It was not long after that that more and more banks and merchants across the U.S. started using the wooden nickel as a coin replacement when change was not available. During the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, the production of the wooden nickel as a souvenir for people to take home was popular. This practice went on with local events and festivals up to the 1950s and 1960s when they declined with the plastic token taking its place. Present day is considered a novelty in Exonumia standards. These types of items are still being made and used for special events. Some of the manufacturing techniques in creating wooden nickels include carving, printing, and painting. The most common type of wood used to create wooden nickels is birch. Birch is a hardwood that is easy to carve and has a smooth surface. Other types of wood that can be used include maple, cherry, and walnut. And I love all three of those types of woods. So
Walnut's my favorite. Yeah.
yeah, when they're sanded and sanded out real nice, they're beautiful.
For sure.
The wood is typically cut into round shapes using a saw or lathe. Even in modern times, the wooden currency was utilized. During the COVID-19 pandemic in the town of Tenino. Tonight, God, every time. Tenino provided local citizens up to $300 in wood currency to use throughout the town. That was pretty neat. We actually found a video of the old press being used.
Yeah.
In Tenino, making the wooden script.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Yeah. Social media shows that the wooden nickel as a popular promotional item and has helped kept them alive as a symbol of American culture. An old phrase or saying dated back to 1915 references of wooden nickels by saying, "Don't take any wooden nickels." It simply began as a humorous warning to country folks going to the city not to be taken in by city slickers trying to pay them off with wooden nickels.
So we know wooden nickels in a lot of different variations. I remember seeing wooden nickels when going to South Dakota and when I was young. But to read through and to understand the history behind this, so Port Orford is actually here in Oregon, and it's on the southern end of the coast. So that has both Washington, which is obviously just north of me. Both of those have a very, very specific and local history in reference to where I'm at. And I think it's really cool. And I know Blues was in Washington before. So we both kind of have a history with kind of where this stuff is coming from. So I think it's really cool. And the fact that like modern times, the town still utilizes and still accepts the wooden nickels as payment for goods throughout the town. So that's really cool.
Yeah, the town of Tenino still makes the wooden script, and you could actually buy it for face value. But most people that do that, they keep them as souvenirs.
Right.
So, but they still accept that wooden script in their town as a form of currency within the merchants. So,
yeah,
I think that is so cool.
That is so cool.
I need to go see that town.
I know. Let's road trip to Washington. All right. So the next category for Exonumia is Condor tokens. So the Condor tokens were used in the United Kingdom, also known as 18th century provincial tokens. They were a form of privately minted coinage or token coinage, similar to the Civil War tokens in the United States. The driving force behind the need for token coinage was a shortage of small denomination coins for everyday transactions, which that part is kind of a reoccurring theme to a lot of different time periods, to a lot of different countries, where these coins and these tokens kind of come out of, is that there is a need for these small denominations. The demand was compounded by the Industrial Revolution, population growth, and the increasing amount of counterfeit coins in circulation. The government made really little effort to offset the shortage, so private business owners and merchants took matters into their own hands, with the first tokens being issued in 1787 to pay workers at the mine company. By 1795, millions of tokens of a few thousand varieties had been struck and were in common use throughout Great Britain. So if I took that information and I scrubbed out some of the years and the location, it is basically word for word the exact same thing that happened during the Civil War in the US. And that the government was not making enough coinage, or the coinage was being hoarded. So there wasn't that much in circulation, and there was a shortage for businesses to operate. So many businesses and many individuals and groups started making their own tokens so that they could continue bartering or continue the economy to keep going. In 1768, one of the largest copper mines in the world was found at Paris Mountain on the island of Anglesey. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. I apologize. In the northwest of Wales. In 1785, Thomas Williams, who was dubbed the Copper King, acting as a representative of the Paris Mine Company, met with the master of the British Mint, proposing that regal copper coins should be struck using counterfeit deterrent methods of edge lettering. This proposal came, obviously, with the stipulation that the copper would, of course, come from the Paris Mine Company. This idea was not entertained, and it was pretty harshly rejected. And by 1786, 2/3 of the coins in circulation in Britain were counterfeit. The Royal Mint responded by shutting down, making the situation even worse. Few of the silver coins that were being passed at the time were genuine, and the copper coins were getting melted down and replaced with lightweight fakes. So the Royal Mint did not strike copper coins for 48 years, from 1773 to 1821. With rare occasions that the mint did strike coins, they were crude and the quality control was basically non-existent. In February 1787, Williams oversaw the minting of the first privately issued copper tokens. These first tokens bore the image of a hooded druid, and within 2 months, the tokens were receiving attention in London as a possible solution to the shortage of small denomination coins. So that's an interesting fact that that just within 2 months, like the situation was so bad with all of the counterfeits and everything else, that these new tokens that were being produced already were already being looked at as a possible solution for the coin shortage within the first 2 months. So that's a pretty fast turnaround and kind of highlights of really how bad the situation was. One of the most prolific producers of the Condor tokens was Matthew Bolton. Bolton was no stranger to the manufacture of small metal items, having grown up with and managed his family business for many years that specialized in producing buckles. During his lifetime, Bolton would strike millions of these merchant pieces. In the mid-1780s, he had turned his attention to coinage and had several shares in several Cornish copper mines with a large personal stock of copper. that he purchased when the mines were unable to dispose of it elsewhere. When he received orders for counterfeit money, he refused them, stating, "I will do anything short of being a common information against particular persons to stop the malpractices of the Birmingham coiners." So he was pretty adamant about, like, he wanted to do it correctly, and he wasn't about to allow his machines, to allow his company to produce fakes, which is very cool because he could still make money by producing fakes, but he stood by his company and his word to not do that. In 1788, he established the Soho Mint as part of his industrial plant. The mint included 8 steam-powered presses, each striking between 70 and 84 coins a minute. So that's pretty fast when you're comparing the time frame to the machines that we have now that can strike tens of thousands per minute. The tokens are set in 3 sizes. The first one, the smallest one, the farthing, is at 21 millimeters, the half penny at 29 millimeters, and the penny at 34 millimeters. As the collecting craze took off from manufacturers, they found issuing tokens with limited runs that they could be sold at increased profits. 3 extensive reference works on the indexing and collecting of the provincial tokens were published before 1800 by Pye, and it's spelled Pye, Bircall, Bircall, that was in 1796, and Conder, Conder, in 1798. And all of these were not accomplished numismatic researchers. These were all personal collections and books that were created by, basically, personal collections by the authors themselves. So company script. So this was kind of an interesting thing to read about and to do the research on, because that it sounds familiar, maybe to some people, because it was still being used up until the 60s in some areas of the US. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So a company script is a script, which is a substitute for government issued legal tender or currency, and it's issued by a company to pay its employees. It can only be exchanged in company stores owned by the employers. In the U.S., payment in script became illegal in 1938 as part of the Fair Labor Standards Act. In the U.S., mining and logging camps were typically created, owned, and operated by a single company. These locations, often found in remote areas, were very cash poor, and workers had little choice but to purchase goods at a company store as exchange into currency, as exchanging the script into currency would exhaust some of its value. So they tack on fees if you're trying to change it over into regular currency. With this economic monopoly, the employer could place large markups on goods, making employees entirely dependent on the company. This group was not exclusive to the coal industry, as an estimated 75% of all scrip used by the coal companies, an estimated 75% of all scrip was used by coal companies in Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. Many nicknames for the type of currency originated in the Appalachian mining communities, such as flickers, clackers, and dugaloos. Great names. I support those names. Yeah. The tokens were made out of a variety of metals, including brass, copper, zinc, and nickel. Yeah, whoever named those, 100% support. Coal company script. So the use of coal script dates to the late 1800s, as coal companies looked for a way to increase their profits. Rather than receiving compensation in US currency, many miners received payment entirely in script, which could only be used at the company store. Coal companies would advance miners their wages in script. I can't spell, but would pay from 50% to 80% of their wages for such advances. The result was a situation in which miners were perpetually in debt to their employer, receiving only advance against unearned wages. There was no uniform design for script, but each coin generally identified the location of the coal company town and predominantly featured the words non-transferable to communicate to recipients it could not be transferred for US currency. Coal script was deemed unconstitutional if non-transferable in the early 20th century, but continued to exist in Kentucky and West Virginia until officially outlawed by Congress in 1967. So
That
that is just wild to think about how long that was used before it was deemed, like, I mean, it was deemed unconstitutional and like very early on, but just the fact that it continued to be used up until 1967 where it had to be outlawed completely, like that's crazy.
yeah, there was some shady business owners back in the day.
Oh yeah. Oh, so much. So from 1914 to 1924, during and following the First World War, a variety of forms of German script were issued, including the Notgeld, Lagergeld, Gutscheine, and Zerinscheine. Such currencies were issued by principalities, German colonial governments, cities, large corporations, small businesses, prisoner of war camps, and in some case, individuals. So I thought all of that was really interesting. That not only did the U.S. have script that was used for a long time, but also during the First World War, the Germans also used script as a whole by the entire country, but it was issued out by basically the different city states, which is also kind of cool. Which makes a lot of sense now that I think about when I'm looking through some old coinage, and especially from Germany, and they all have different city states on them. It's that aspect right there makes a lot more sense because before it was unified in making one single denomination, basically you had basically each city state making their own currencies. So yeah. Opus.
OPA tokens. I kind of like these. I mean, they're small. I mean, they're smaller than a dime. So, and if you don't like looking at dimes, you ain't gonna like looking at these things. The OPA token during World War II, the federal government initiated a new agency called Office of Price Administration. Its objective including rationing of scarce commodities, price fixing on certain items, and preventing runaway inflation during the war. Each household was issued ration books based on a variety of factors, including the number of people in the household, the ages, if any children under the age of 3, elderly, and handicapped. These ration booklets contain variety small stamps which had no cash value but were required to purchase food items. The price of the item was not a factor in the use of these stamps. However, to make exact change, shopkeepers were issued small red or blue tokens or points. These points were made 16 millimeter in size and from vulcanized fiber with an estimated production of 900 million blue tokens and 1.1 billion red tokens. These tokens were issued from 1942 to 1945 when rationing ended. The OPA blue points had 24 different letter combinations, and the red came in 30 different letter combinations. The letter combinations were random and seamlessly no specific reason. It is believed that this was intentional to prevent counterfeiting. With with the two colors used, red being the most common than the blue ones, red opas were used for goods such as meat, fish, dairy products, and cooking oils, and the blue opas were used for the purchase of canned or processed foods. The rarest of the red tokens is the MV letter combination, followed by the red MM. For the blue tokens, the rarest combination is the blue WW. When collecting the red and blue operas, similarly to regular coin collecting, tokens with errors will command a premium and are well sought after. There are numerous references online to the OPAs in the original documents outlining uses of the OPA points.
So I dug around while we were working on this, and I actually found an instruction sheet that was basically of how to calculate how many stamps and how many opal points that you got. And it was a little basically it was a little document, and you had to fill it out and then submit that information to get your rations. And it took a lot of different things into account, and you can still find this. I mean, technically it's memorabilia of World War II, but it also, because of how it's tied into the opas and how it's used as currency, it technically falls under the Exonumia umbrella. um so that is kind of cool, to have stuff like that still exist. And like, you obviously, ration books you can get, the OPA points you can get very readily online, in a number of different facets. I'm sure that nearly all coin shops have either have these or have seen these, because for a lot of different times and variations, like, they were used as currency, as coinage. So it was kind of cool to see, basically the instruction book on how to use the opal points and how they calculate them, and to see some of the old posters that actually show like how the points and how the stamps are used to purchase goods, because they had to basically, the OPA had to figure out how do we teach the entire U.S. economy to use these things. So the literature they had, the posters that they had, are very very well done. Um, it was really cool. It was really cool to look into that.
Yeah, I still come across the OPAs when I go to coin shows and stuff. Some dealers will have small little Ziploc bag of them, just just basically a handful, and both colors would be in there.
Yeah.
So I still come across them. I kind of stay away from them because some of the rare ones go for good money. So in the back of my mind, I always think that they've been looked at, and these are just common letter ones. So
Still, they have an interesting history, and also, like, and it's something that I think about every now and then. Like, hey, can I put together an entire set of these, whether it's red or blue, and can I cherry pick the letter combinations.
Yeah.
So that's something when, like, especially on not necessarily eBay auctions, but some of the local auctions that I'm on, or the proxy bid auctions that I check out. Anytime I see OPAs on there, I'm always like very much zooming in and looking at the different letter combinations, because I'm looking for, for the WW, the MM, some of the other what they would consider semi-key, basically letter combinations. I'm looking for those because I'm like, hey, if I can pick those up for cheap, then I'm already set.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding the information on the OPAs, OPS,
OPA.
OPA. Finding that information online it's all there. It's not like you need to go and start searching for this stuff. It's going to be coming up. So
Yeah, and even on Numista has in their listings, they have a link to some of the OPA documentation and the history on them. So it's one of those things that it is pretty well documented as far as kind of the history, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be found. So look out for those rare combinations.
yeah, I kind of think it's kind of humorous to me because the topic before this, you're talking about the coal miners, and they were issued script to use in company stores only,
Yeah.
and then the government outlawed it, but then the government took that idea and did the same thing in during the war, going, you will use ration stamps in the stores. So it's kind of
Well, I mean, but your difference is that the government is not, like, they don't own the stores. Like, that's your difference. Your company script, like, I pay you, 5 X's or whatever, right? But you can only use it in my store that I provide for you.
yeah,
Like, that would be company script, and that would be like, I'm basically binding you to exist on my terms. And, like, that's, I mean, it can be technically akin to slavery, to like economic slavery. But it is an unfortunate part of the US history that existed, and that was the system that was
right,
used.
yeah. But it's kind of neat how the correlation just kind of falls into like a, a small group of a gray area with the company script and the OPAs, and I mean they're not closely matching, but they're almost
It's
touching.
it's definitely along the same lines,
Yeah.
for sure. It's definitely the same ballpark.
Hey, I did pretty good this week. My blood sugar level didn't drop out on me like last week.
That's
So
good. I'm glad I sent you the reminder saying, hey, maybe you should eat.
yeah, yeah. Maybe you should. I didn't eat last week, and during the reading of my part of the show, I mean, I about fell out of my chair. I was done. So
Yeah, we can't have that anymore. No more of that.
so I just got to
Um,
remember to eat.
so this is the final part, the part 3 of our mini series on Exonumia. So number one, I wanted to thank everybody who came in and was watching the show. Stuff like this is really interesting to me, and I'm sure it is to Blues as well. There's so much history on some of the stuff, and numismatics as a whole is such a big umbrella, that trying to get all of it on, basically, online for information for you guys, can be kind of hard sometimes. So just to be able to hit on some of these topics and bring this information to you guys, it brings me so much satisfaction, because it's history that, people should know, and there's not a lot of these, informational videos that are out there especially on stuff like Exonumia, because it's not talked about.
Yep. This was the part 3. This was the last part for the Exonumia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, because I mean, there are a number of other things that fall under Exonumia, but it's not going to have as much detail as some of the things that we hit on in these 3 shows, because these 3 shows, the different topics and the different subjects that we talked about, those are going to be the ones that people are going to come across while they are coin collecting in normal circumstances, whether that be specific coins or going after historical pieces. This stuff is going to be the stuff that they come across. Some of the other stuff under Exonumia is going to be so very niche that you would have to specifically go out and look for it if you were actually putting it together. So
yeah. So,
but want to thank everybody for coming in and watching. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for Blues for continuing to co-host Monday Night Coin Talk with me. Very much appreciated, sir. And that's our show, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, CJ. Everybody, have a good evening. Enjoy your week.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Yay.